Today's a three-part series of how to get money for your business. So we want to thank you all for joining us and congratulations, right, on taking this step into helping your business scale and grow, getting these resources that you need, and being able to ask questions, while you're on your path. So we have a special guest all weekend, and today we start off with our rock star, Nia Mullen. Um, and she has a history, an amazing history, doing great things. I know she's worked with startup nonprofits and existing nonprofits. So I'm going to let her give you a little more detail on what she does, and then we'll get started with the presentation.
Hey, thank you, Sharia. I am Nia Mullen. I am a native Detroit, Michigander, born and raised there. However, I've been working remotely from outside of Atlanta, Georgia for the past 8 years. My background is in um, nonprofit, administration. I've always ran the office around there, but I also have a steady background in grant writing and fundraising as well. So I'd like to bring that knowledge to you all today. And as well as the nonprofit organizations that I work for, they're called CDFIs. They are Community Development Financial Institutions. So they're similar to banks. They are alternative financiers. So if you're a small business, if you're looking for a mortgage, or if you're a real estate developer, this is another avenue. The CDFIs are another way to access capital. So I do have some knowledge. I used to sit at loan committee meeting tables and all of that. So I know I have some knowledge around small businesses, what they look for as far as funding. And I do have a few resources that I could share if you guys have questions on that too. Over the years, I have written and had been awarded about $40 million in grant capital. And that is for a couple of CDFIs, and I have a few small nonprofits thrown in there. And that capital has been for like program development. Fortunately for the one of the larger CDFIs I worked for, we were able to bring in operating capital for you to pay your staff and things like that, which is kind of rare, but it is available. So I just want to bring my knowledge and expertise around there and answer any questions that you guys might have. So that's my intro, Sharia.
That's amazing. She's amazing, guys. As you can see, she's definitely helped the community, right? Um, and that's what this is about, helping and building our communities so that they can grow. So if you don't know, I am Sharia Smith. I'm the managing partner of Credit Clubhouse. Definitely big on helping our community build wealth. A lot of it comes through resources. Yes, you need personal credit, business credit, but all of it turns into the funding for the next step that goes back into our community. So that's why we're hosting this 3-day event, so you guys can get the resources you need during this pandemic time, during this recession time, so that we can move forward. So I want to get started with just a simple, basics, right? Like, what is a grant, Nia?
A grant is funding that an organization gives you. And it's typically from, I'll start from the beginning. So when you have, or when your families are leaving a legacy, so you have these large names like Ralph Wilson, and I know you guys have heard of the Rockefeller Foundation and things like that. If you know, that comes from like long-term family money. So grants are usually started from those type of operations, especially when you're dealing with foundations. Now we know the government, we know where that funding comes from, but typically the foundations are from, sometimes they're family owned money. There's a long time legacy there from either building, someone building up their business and leaving funds after their death to their family, or another way to do it, which I'm also an agent of, is life insurance. That's how you leave a legacy for your family. So even if you haven't built a business through your life that has millions in profit and things like that, you can definitely have a policy in place and set that up to a trust or something like that to leave that for your family. And if you wanted to leave a legacy and start a nonprofit that way, that's usually how it starts. So that's just the back end of it. The grant funds are typically funds, those funds, and they typically have stewards over it. So if I'm working for a foundation, I'm a steward over that money. And typically people leave those funding, that money in order to serve a cause. So maybe they might target a specific population of people that they want to leave that money to help. Or they might want to target those who have, who are going through specific conditions, maybe hunger relief and maybe workforce readiness and all of that type of stuff. So they are able to customize, or you, if you leave your legacy, you're able to customize how you'd like that money to be spent. And this is why when you get into writing grants and things like that, I get a lot of people, and even when I started, I would say, gosh, they're asking for so much information. Well, this is money that people have like worked their blood, sweat, and tears for in most cases. So they want to make sure that the organizations that they're going to provide grant money to is actually doing the work first and
Yep.
foremost. So you can't just say, hey, I want to do X. No, they want to see that you're doing it already.
I love
And
it.
they also want to see that you are vetting your clients that you're providing services to, because you don't want to have just anybody coming through and they're not following through on the impact that you're trying to create.
Yes.
So that's where all the paperwork and all these things come in. So grant funds are, again, funds that an organization can provide to another, typically a nonprofit organization, unless they solicit to businesses. And I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
And for a specific cause. So they'll ask you to use that, or they have their guidelines set. Whenever they have a grant proposal or a situation out there, they'll tell you what they want the funding used for. So you can use it
Okay.
for program development. Maybe you're providing specific services directly to beneficiaries, but then they cap you at how much you can put for payroll and all that, because they don't want you to get too heavy on payroll and you're not doing much on the service side. So
Okay.
that is what grants are, and you have to abide by what you apply for. So if I'm applying to the Credit Clubhouse Foundation and I want to apply for $20,000, and I say, well, I'm going to use $15,000 to provide goods and services to, let's say, people who have been impacted by COVID, right?
Okay.
And now I'm going to
Yes.
take the other $5,000 to help pay for things like gas and transportation, help getting those goods and services over to the community. Now, they usually ask for a report. And this is
Okay.
similar to anyone who's familiar with the SBA PPP loans. Let's hold that thought there and let's think of these grants. You're asking for them for money. You're giving them line items of how you're going to use the money. So when you report back, you need to show that you use the money exactly the way you told them to. And when it's
Yeah.
done that way, you don't have to pay anything back. Now, if you cannot report back how you use that grant or that PPP loan, and I mean, even if they catch wind that you're doing, like went and bought an expensive car or something like that, you'll definitely
So
have to pay the grant money back.
now that's good to know, because when some people hear the word grant money, they think it's free money, and it's good to know that there are requirements. And if you do not meet those requirements,
Yes,
as you should, they will request their funds back.
they definitely can. The federal government absolutely will. But when you're dealing with private foundations, it really it's up to them. But yeah, normally you have to kind of pay for that in some kind of way.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's good to know. So you mentioned even about the funding, and having those line items, which will bring me to my next question. Like, how important is it to have a budget?
A budget is like one of the first things you should have in place when you are starting a nonprofit. And I know it's difficult sometimes because when you're starting off fresh, like a grassroots organization, like you yourself pulled together some board members and things like that, you're like, a
Right.
budget? I don't, but you're still starting off. You have website fees if you have that. You still have
Mhm.
like email or domain costs that you're incurring. So all of that stuff should be kept in a budget because these are your operating fees. So even if you don't have, anyone donating money right away, the fact that you yourself or your maybe your board members are contributing, the fact that those fees are getting taken care of, that still you should still show that as income. If those bills are getting paid, that's still income. Whether it's income from yourself, that's a individual donation, and that's how you categorize it on your budget.
See,
Simple.
that's an awesome gem right there, right?
Absolutely. So I
That's
do
an
have
awesome gem.
a free template that I will provide. It's really cut and dry on putting a budget together, where you just plop your numbers in, what your expenses are, and you can kind of add your own budget numbers. But then
Awesome.
we'll talk later. I do have another template that is a paid version that's fully customizable. You have tabs for each and every category to where, if you have two programs under your nonprofit, you have a program expense for each one.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
awesome.
really beneficial, not only for just budgeting, but going forward with your grant proposals too. So
Oh, I love
budgeting is extremely important. It's one of the first things you should do.
I love it. I mean, as with any business. So I did go ahead and drop your link. If you guys see the link in the chat, one, there's a workbook in the winner circle link so that you can follow along. But also I've included Nia's link. So that budget sheet is there. I think it, like she says, it's important as a business owner to keep track of those expenses, but these grants, they're going to require that. So I love it. She's bringing you the gems and the tools to succeed. So knowing, okay, we know what a grant is. We know we need to have a budget. Okay. Where do I look for a budget, right? What's one of the best places to look for a budget?
Um, well, typically, I mean, what you want to do, they really don't have, not that I've seen this, which is why I created my budget template, because I haven't found anything out there where you could, because even when I was first starting out, of course, I was with an organization,
Mhm.
but there are times where you're doing a grant proposal and you're asking for 150,000, and they're saying, and here's the deal. So I'm gonna pause there. You have an organizational budget that covers your
Okay.
entire organization. It encompasses your programs, everything. And then you have your program budget, which is solely for your program. So when I encountered a proposal and I'm asking for 150 and they said, give me your program budget. Um, where
What
do
is
I
that?
get
No.
that? Yes. So I
Mhm.
literally had to kind of find or figure my way through it. This is why I like to bring, I have like truly hands-on experience, guys. Like
Right.
I have been in your shoes where I'm like, what is this? Why are they asking for all of this? But now everything makes sense. And so I like to just provide that on a granular level. So yeah, finding a budget template, you might have to kind of go through some like grant courses and things, and they might, send you a template after you pay for the course.
Right.
Um, but
You
other
guys.
than that, I would just search for images online and you can probably find some images and then just build your own.
Okay. So one, tap into the resource that she's definitely provided for you in the links in the chat. That's going to be beneficial for you. So now you know what a grant is. You again, you have your budget. Let's just say, like you mentioned, Credit Clubhouse Foundation, we're helping out people that's been impacted by COVID. Where can I begin to look for those grants?
That's a good question. I use an online platform. It's called Grant Station.
Grant Station.
And yes, Grant Station is a pretty cool resource. It kind of taps into government grants, statewide grants, and then it goes on the charitable foundational level. You can search for many different types of funding. So if you're looking for something for, let's see, for housing, you can
Okay.
click that and it'll bring you up all the funders that have. Now they may not have any proposals out that are open right then and there,
Okay.
but they will direct you and allow you to save those funders. They send you right to their website, so you can actually start building your own list of people that you can start going after. You might want to just check their website here and there, or most important, you want to sign up for their email list, because then you'll be the
Okay.
first person to get those
Good.
notifications to say, hey, we have $1 million available and we're sharing it. We'd like to give 10 nonprofit organizations $100,000. You're going to have about 50 to 100 people apply. But that's when, you want to make sure your budget is tight. Um, some of the key points, and I like to point out, I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, is
Oh, this is good.
you want to make sure that you are showing the impact that your organization is doing. I know you and I had spoke on the tournament that a nonprofit is doing um, in Orlando. Very
Yes.
first year as an organization, as a nonprofit. Now they've done it before, but officially
Mhm.
as a 501c3, this is their first year they're going through the activities. Now would be the best time for you to make sure you have your tracking or have registration, like for parents and people that are coming in. You want to build up your email list. Um, there are children involved, so you can't have them sign up, but you definitely want to kind of get
Right.
an estimate on how many children were involved and take some really candid photos.
Okay.
I note candid. So, you know, you don't want to say, hey, kids, get in a circle. You know, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have forced photos, but you just want to show the environment on what's going on if you have video. Because just
Okay.
starting out your first year, this is when you're putting the work in. So
Yes.
now when you're going after funders, now you've got some photos, you've got probably some flyers that you've advertised with. If you're able to get videos of someone saying, I had an amazing time and this was so helpful, they gave me this and they really saved me. You want that stuff. And it's not throwing a video in a person's face, but like I said, you just want to have an event and make it really, really candid. And just, you know, ask somebody, hey, are you having a good time? If you don't mind, we have a video over there if you want to let us, you know, do it that way.
I love it. I
I
love it.
know
No.
I know we've all seen the meme online where you see the homeless person and then the person taking a picture of them giving the food. Have you guys seen that? Oh my gosh. That's not the way to go. That's not the
Okay.
way to go.
I don't like it, but I get it. I get it. So this is good. So being able to document the impact that you're making where it, like you said, it's not forced. And so like you mentioned, so one, we have the flyers and the videos, which are clearly a cost as
Yes,
well. Keep that in your
absolutely.
budget.
Marketing
Keep
costs
that.
add to your budget.
Okay. Keep that in your budget, but now you show the impact. And like you mentioned, this is their first year operating as a nonprofit. Are
Yes.
they able to use the previous year's work that had been done?
Absolutely. You can definitely discuss, talk about the work. And it's amazing when you can talk about, okay, I had an event my first year, you know, before we became a 501c3. And, you know,
Mhm.
we had 50 attendees coming out. Year two, we doubled that. So it's nice when you can show just some organic growth. So never be afraid. Like if it's your first time going and you just had 20 people come to your event, it's okay. It's okay. People came.
Mhm. Mhm. And
And
then you bring
so,
the girl.
yeah, and you bring your growth from there. So never be afraid to start off too small. Um, you know, I like grassroots organizations. Like those are the people, like they're usually from the community. They
Mhm.
usually have lived experience and know and have that passion of why they're doing what they're doing. And they typically recruit people who have done the same thing. So now you got a whole board or a whole team of individuals who know what the community needs because they've been there, rather than a large organization that started off from this bigger entity who's coming
Uh,
down from the top saying, oh, they need this. You don't know what we need because you haven't talked to us. So
I,
always talk to your community members. A
okay.
simple event, if you don't have the budget to do a grandiose event at a large venue, have something small. We'll put it smack dab in the park in the community. I always tell people, and it might sound simple, and I hope people don't think it's ghetto, but
No,
sparking up a barbecue grill, throwing up a tent and some
no
banners and some
barbecue.
balloons, guess what? People are going to come. They're going to come. And now you can start talking about your nonprofit. Now you
I
can
love
say,
it.
hey, we're in the community doing XYZ. What type of issues are you seeing? So we can kind of address that. That's grassroots to
I
me.
love it.
Yes.
And I love it. I mean, like, that's authentic. It's real. I mean, like, one, who doesn't love food? But like you
Yes.
said,
Yes. And hot dogs and
it,
burgers isn't too much. You can, you know, Aldi got burger buns for under $1. So that's my spot. So
I love, no, Aldi's is great. It's one of those places where you didn't realize you can almost go vegan and it still tastes good. So
absolutely,
I love
absolutely.
it.
And just to pause, since we're talking about places like Aldi and One of the questions that I usually get
Mhm.
is how soon after starting my nonprofit can I receive grant money? I like
Yes.
to keep it all the way real because I've seen organizations out here like, we'll start your 501c3 and we'll get you grant money. Like, I want to know what they're doing because from what I know, as I told you, many funders just switch with the work. So if you're starting off brand new and you like just got your paperwork, unless, like you said, you have been doing the work and you've done stuff prior to your nonprofit starting, then you have a little bit of history to talk about. But when you're brand spanking new, the easiest thing to do is, like I said, to start getting out in the community, start getting engagement, having small events, something that you could
Yes.
do, put together. But now, since you have your 501c3, the first thing you could do is go after the smaller sponsorship. So you can contact the Aldi Foundation. And here's a key point: all of these big box retailers, Walmart, Aldi, Home Depot, Lowe's, Target,
Hmm.
like just about every one of your favorite places to shop, they
Yes.
always have a foundation behind it. So if you don't know their exact name, just Google the retailer's name and put foundation behind it, and
I
something will
love.
come up. Or put Walmart grants and it'll bring up the links. So these are you know, they might be smaller, so you might get, 500, maybe up to $5,000 from these
Okay.
organizations. But it's a start. It's definitely a start. What I what you don't want to do is come out, you get your 501c3, and then now you're expecting someone to drop you $150,000.
Okay.
You will be
That was
very,
definitely
very disappointed. The only way you can do that is if you know somebody in that foundation who's like, I
okay.
love what you're doing, and I'm just waiting on you to do your 501c3 because I can get you, like, if you have a leeway, an in like that, oh yeah, then yeah, you can get somebody to drop
Okay.
150 on you if they know you, and like you
Okay.
said, it's all about who you know. But starting out, yes, you definitely have to start out organic. So I would say yes, hit Walmart, hit Aldi. If you're into sports, hit Dick's Sporting Goods. They have a charitable arm there. Um, yeah, so it's plenty. What I want to do and what I'll add to my dope link, hopefully over this weekend, is a link
Okay.
with just all of these
I will
resources that you could just go to their sites. I won't offer, because I'm a grant writer, so I don't typically offer my services for anything like that, because those are really simple applications to where they're asking for your organization name, what your focus areas are, and you just give a little blurb about it, just talk about what you're planning on doing. And yeah, that's pretty simple. They'll ask you to upload your 501c3 document, so you have to make sure you have that. So yeah, those are really simple. And then once you get engaged with them, if Walmart gives you $500, they'll ask you to maybe they'll give you a call and say, hey, would you like for us to feature you? And you can actually
That's
be
awesome.
featured, and being featured, of course, gets more people looking at you. Now you got some news to put out on your website, and you can gain some more traction from some other funders.
I
Yes.
love it. I love it. So, one, you guys hear that? She's giving gems on this 1st of July. This is a good day, right? For nonprofits as well.
Yes. So yeah, this is, thank you for reminding me of that. So the second quarter has just ended. So if you have a current nonprofit, and some of this is relative to small businesses too. So if you guys have businesses and things that you're thinking of grants, put this in mind as a business. Of course, you won't have to have your 501c3 documentation, but you definitely have to have your organizing entity documents. So your
Yeah.
EIN and your articles and all of that stuff. So same things. Um, but yes, the end of the second quarter just ended. So now it's time for you to look at the impact you've made during that month. Um, you're able to just kind of tally up everything, because if you're in the process as a nonprofit, if you've already
Mhm.
gotten grant funding, some funders ask for you to give them quarterly reports. So each quarter, you just want to make it just a goal, or have someone on your team, because don't do it all by yourself. You got leeway to get volunteers in, pull them from colleges. They can get college credits from working
Yes.
with your organization. But
Definitely
yeah, have
worth it.
someone there that's tallying up even your financial stuff. You want to have your financial, look at it on a quarterly basis. Um, as a
This
business
is
owner would know, going back and looking at your different quarters could help you project, the type of funding you might need. So start marking that stuff off now. Those are just good practices to put in place.
yes, definitely as a business owner. And just like you said, being structured, making sure that you actually are being organized. So as a nonprofit, you can actually go get these interns and these volunteers to help you get organized.
Yes.
Now, I would want to dive into now you have a team, right?
Mhm.
We need to have meeting minutes.
Okay. Yes.
What are the,
So a lot of this is super, super critical. A lot of what I'm about to say is super critical when you're applying, definitely for anything government funded. The government, and if you're getting come across where you have to get financial audits. So
okay,
yeah. So I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna talk about audits really, really quick. Just really quick. As a
okay,
nonprofit organization, as you continue to grow, especially when you reach revenues over $50,000, you will want to, is not always required, but you will find that many larger applications will require you to submit your audited financial statements. That's what they call
okay.
it. So this is when a third party organization, not your CFO, not your accountant, but a third party comes in to look over your financial statements to make sure everything is clean. They'll, depending on how big of an organization you are, they can get really in depth.
Oh,
But I've seen it to the extent where they want to see maybe if you have processes in place on how you, if you're giving money out and they want to see that you have a process or like criteria, eligibility, things like that in place to where you're not just giving money all to your cousin. You know what I mean? You have to have
yes,
those protocols in place. And so what am I on? I'm on audits now, but what were we talking about that I was getting to the board minutes? Okay.
yes.
Want to make sure I don't get off track because I can go on forever.
I
So
love
yes,
it though.
an audited statement. So you'll have a third party CPA come in. You'll have to hire them, and this is something that will have to be in your budget as you get bigger. Um, Definitely put it in your budget so that you can raise funds for it because it can get pricey. They come in and
Oh,
they oversee those books. They oversee the policies. They make sure you're on the up and up. And once your audit comes back clean, this tells like every funder that you're applying for that you are a trustworthy organization, that you will be good stewards over the funding if they award it to you. So this is almost like it's really, really, really good to have these in place. Now, when you're asking for grants, yeah, when you're getting up to the 150, quarter million, half million, definitely $1 million grants, they are for sure going to ask you for audited financial statements. Now, I have a tidbit on that because as I said, they can get costly, and especially if
you guys
you have
listening?
revenues over $50,000. I had a client. Fiverr is one of the outsourcing places that I use. I don't know if you guys heard of Fiverr.
Like Fiverr.
Yes.
We have
I
affiliate links.
Yes, I do too, and I have to share them as well. I had a
Mhm.
client that she was a fairly new grassroots nonprofit. She has really done a lot of work. She's up there in Detroit, Michigan. And one of the grants that we were looking at, they wanted audited financial statements. So I'm talking to her like, oh man, so she's like, I'm going to reach out to my accountant
Mhm.
friends and see what the cost might be. So I think she reached out and it was a little more than what she had available right now. So what she did was she went on to the CPA part of Fiverr
Fiverr. I
and she
love
found
it.
someone. She didn't tell me the cost, but it must have definitely been in her budget. And she was
Yes.
able to send over her statements to them, and they quickly, I'd say 2, 3 day turnaround, turned around her
Mhm.
audited financial statements. And did she get that grant award? Yes, she did.
Hey, hey, I
So
love
if
it.
you don't have it in your budget right now, just look at outsourcing to places like Fiverr, or if you know of any other professional platforms where certified professionals, you want to keep that in mind,
Yes.
are able to come on and kind of freelance. You can definitely get that assistance that way instead of going through a large name CPA that is gonna hit you in the head with their fees. So, so that's my piece on audits. Now, your board meetings and your meeting minutes are very essential. First and foremost, when you are starting as a nonprofit, and a lot of people forget about this, When you have registered with your state, you know, you got your 501c3 information in. One of the first things you should do with your state, and most states require it, some states don't, is to have your charitable solicitation license. This application is totally free to complete. You're just letting them know, hey, I'm now a nonprofit, so you'll have to probably show them your EIN, your 501c3 documentation. But one of the things that they ask for are your first board meeting minutes. Aha, so you want to make sure that you have had or are having board meetings. You can set them on a frequency, you know, based on what your board agrees to, which should be in your board bylaws.
By law.
Yeah, and I talk about that. I actually have a video that's available that goes through the entire board meeting process. It shows you how to facilitate, how to call meetings to order. I mean, who's doing what. And I give you a snapshot, or actually details, really. I like to go granular because just to
I love
pause.
it.
A lot of
I
the
love
information that you get from these, and I've gone to many grant courses and things like that, they give you the surface information up here.
it.
And so I've taken that back and done my work, but I know that it's much more granular information in there. So this is the type of tea that I'm trying to put out that you don't get from many
Yes.
people. But I give you detailed bullet points on how to take your meeting minutes, to where if an outside auditor comes in and look at your minutes, you're not giving them too much and you're not giving them too little, because you give them too much, they're going to continue to ask questions.
Oh,
If you have in your meeting minutes, you know, you guys are having a meeting, and say you guys were disagreeing on something, the board,
yes.
you don't want to put all of that in your, well, Diana says she didn't like this idea, and Rich said he did. Don't do that, because then
Okay.
they'll see that and they'll come back like, well, we want to talk to Diana. Don't do that.
Oh no, Diana, be
So
quiet.
once you come to an agreement, you put that in there. The board agreed to do X, Y, and Z. You can say there was conversation on X, Y, and Z. You don't put the back and forth. But yeah,
This
you
is
want to
good.
just really just bullet point, get detailed, but not too much. So
And this is because regular business owners should keep those as well. So meeting minutes.
I would say definitely, definitely business owners should keep it. I mean, you just never know, like, you know, anything could come up. Um, you know, business owners have more issues like with litigation and things like that, whereas nonprofits usually don't really have much of that going on. So yeah, keeping meeting minutes, keeping track of what was said, the action items, all of that. I have those detailed as well. And I'm open to questions. Like if you guys like right now have any
Right
type
now.
of questions, like before you get anything, like I'm open to answering those right now. So you don't have to wait.
All right, guys. The
Yes.
room is open.
So your board meetings and your board minutes are super essential for your audits. They're essential for, I wouldn't say so much for grant proposals and things like that. They're more so essential for a lot of administrational things, organizational things. But they're definitely good to have in place. So do we have any questions as of yet? This is really good. I appreciate it. I'm trying to think if there were any other points I wanted to make. Can I, David, you have a question?
I'm just listening.
Oh, okay, no problem. I thought I saw a hand up, but you know what? That wasn't your hand up. That was my cursor on your screen. Sorry about that. There is a question in the chat that says, how many people have to be on the board? Okay, so typically it usually ranges by state, but as a general rule, minimum of 3. You definitely want to have an odd number. You want to keep your number odd in case you have to vote on things. That way you don't ever have any tie votes. So if you got 3 people, there's never a tie. Unless someone has to. Now there may be instances where, say if we are all of us are on a board, and I say, well, hey, a guy that I know does this service that we need for the organization. And you guys are
Yes.
like, okay, well, let's check out his service. You guys are going to check it out. But when you come to vote on it, I'm not voting because I know him. So I have to step off. So that's a rule of thumb. Like if you, okay, and can they be family members? This is an amazing question. Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Um, well, you can have family members on your board, but it has to be kept to 1/3. So if you only have 3 members, you cannot have 2 family members on there. They can actually kind of look at that and recategorize you as a private organization.
Mm,
Family organization. So if you want your family to have an organization, it will be listed as a private organization. You can still operate it like a nonprofit. However, there's little nuances around the the tax deductible donation status. There's some language in there about that when you have something private. But as a public foundation, in order to be, 501c3, you can go after public donations with no problem. You definitely have to keep your family to a minimum of 1/3. So if you do have family members, I definitely recommend for you to increase the amount of your board members and bring
mm,
on people who are not related. And just talking about when you're recruiting board members, I
yes.
found so many people get their friends or just people they know. This sometimes work, but most times it doesn't. Because
Mm,
as a board,
right.
and especially when you're starting off brand new, you're kind of what I coin a working board. You don't have a team. So you guys are actually going to be doing some of the work that goes into building this nonprofit up. You don't have an executive assistant. So somebody there amongst the board needs to take the meeting minutes. So within the board, you have officers. So you designate officers, you'll have a board chairperson. This chairperson, their role is to call the meetings to order. They actually oversee who's the president of the organization. So if we were to look at an org chart right now, you'd have the board up here at the top. And then right up under them is the president. So the board has the right to hire and fire the president of the organization. Can the president be part of the board? Yes, but that
Okay.
president cannot be the board chairperson. Therefore, you're still, and you're still an employee, but you still bring in your value as a board member. But they can still take that position away from you as president. So just keep that in mind. A board president should not be the board chair. It's a conflict of interest. I don't know if there's a maximum number of members. I have seen boards that have a lot of members, up to
Mhm.
19, maybe 21. So there isn't, I don't think there's a max. You definitely want to check with your state guidelines on that. So check, I would Google something like, if I'm in Michigan, I would say Michigan nonprofit board guidelines, and you'll get some links that'll bring up some guidelines on that.
That's
So
good.
yeah, I think you can have as many as you want. So just getting back to the family part, if you have 3 family members on the board, you need at least 6 other non-related board members. And again, with recruiting, you want to bring people on who are just as passionate about the mission as you are. Someone who, um, so someone who's passionate about the mission. It is nice if you can have someone with a financial or accounting type of background who could
Good.
potentially serve as the board treasurer, because your treasurer is going to oversee your CFO or whoever is putting your bookkeeping together. They're going to look through that to make sure, you just have all of these. It's just safeguarding pretty much. Um, Sorry, Sharia, did you want to jump in right there?
No, I was just agreeing, like, yes.
Okay. And then, of course, you want to have your board secretary. So when you're starting out, like I said, if you don't have anyone taking your meeting minutes, your secretary should be taking the minutes of the meeting. So those are like the 3 minimum officers. The chairperson, you should have that. You should have your board treasurer, and you should have your board secretary. Let's see, if I wanted to open up a nonprofit, is it best to hire someone to help you set it up? Or is it easy enough to set up yourself? Well, in my opinion, I think it's easy enough to set up yourself, but I think it depends on the time that you have to dedicate to it. I have to give you, I have to add to my dope link. I have a full 1-page step by step what to do, what forms to fill out, when you should fill them out. Is really neat. I'm going to see if I can find it and drop it in now. But if I can't, we'll definitely follow up with you guys, or you just keep my dope link and we'll be adding it to it. So just a real quick go through the process. So if you're starting a nonprofit, the first thing you should do, not your EIN number, you want to start with the state articles. So whatever state you're in, you file those articles first. You complete the nonprofit articles, because there are different ones. There are for-profit ones like for LLCs, and then there are nonprofit articles. So make sure you complete the nonprofit articles. Within the articles, they're going to ask you for your purpose. In that purpose statement, and please take notes on this because this is something that you can Google. You don't have to really come to my link for this information. You're going to Google specific language for nonprofit articles, and you're going to find a link. I think the IRS gives it to you. Find the IRS link, because there are going to be a ton of links out there. And they give you the specified language to put in your purpose. This language is going to say something like, said organization is organized exclusively, I can almost remember this, this is a shame, for charitable, scientific, other type of purposes, right? And it'll also say that upon dissolution, so if this were to ever, if we've got furniture and all the stuff that we purchased under the nonprofit, upon dissolution, we're not going to sell it and split up the profit amongst our board or anything like that. You're saying that the any assets or anything will be provided to another charitable organization, or it's some wording like that, to where you're telling them that I'm operating as a nonprofit under the laws of the 501c3, and I will not, do anything like in for-profit nature. We're not going to be sharing or splitting any dividends or anything like that. It's just a total clause that's written out. The IRS like literally gives it to you, that you plop it in on those articles. If you don't do that, you have to go through a whole bunch. You got to do amendments and things. They will not recognize you you will not get tax exemption status. So please
Definitely
put that
a good tip.
language. Yes, please put that language in your articles to get the tax exemption status. So once you submit that to the state, if you do it online, I've seen it come back next day, but they'll literally come back in less than a week. You'll get that approved. Once you have that approved, now you can file your EIN number, because now you can select, I need a nonprofit tax ID number. And you go through the questions. They'll ask you what type of charity you'll be, and it's not too hard to put together. So these are the steps so you let me know if it's hard for you, or if you feel like you need to get some help. So after you've done your articles and then you do the EIN, your next step would be to do the 1023 form that gives you your tax exempt status. If you plan to have revenues, if you already know that you're going to bring in over 50,000, if you've got somebody sitting and waiting like, oh, I can't wait till you start it, because I'm going to drop you 100,000 in your account, then you need to do the long form. Now, this long form, you definitely may want to get some assistance with, because they're asking you pretty much for narrative information on what you're going to do. The things that are going to go in your grant proposals when you get out there, they want that up front now. Tell us about your organization. Who are you going to impact? How many people do you plan to service? And all of that goes up front. Now, if you know you're going to start off small, grassroots, you don't have anybody waiting to drop 100,000 in your account, then you can do the easy form, which is a 3-page form, very simple. You access it from a site from the IRS called pay.gov, pay.gov. And that's where you go on, you create an account, you can do your 501c3, your 1023 easy form. You make the payment, $275 for the easy form, $675 for the long form. And once that form, it usually takes up to 120 days. It used to be 90, but since COVID, they've been taking a little longer. So allow yourself up to 4 months to receive approval. And once you get approval, though, that approval is backdated to the date that you first filed your articles. Again,
that's awesome.
When you do
That's
your
why
501c3 paperwork, the 1023, once that is approved, it gets backdated to the date of your articles. So I always tell people, even though you have maybe submitted your form, you're in that 4-month waiting period. Most folks are like, well, what do I do? Get to work. What do I do? Get to work. start doing everything. You can have your board meetings. You can start having your first event if you want to do the picnic style thing, and you're going to be paying out of pocket anyway. Go ahead and get those
Yeah.
events going. And yeah, so once your 501c3 comes through, bam, you're ready for Aldi, you're ready for Walmart, you're ready for Home Depot, because now you've got an event under your belt, you're pretty good to go. So
No, I love it. And then you're right. This is where you could still begin to build. You can build your business, build the credit. So, like she said, get to work.
yeah. Are there particular states that is best to open a nonprofit out of? I don't have any, or I haven't seen any preferences or anything like that. Not that I've known since, during my career. They all, well, I will say, and this is just a shout out to Texas. Texas, listen, for some reason, I had some friends and we were doing one there, and their process just seemed to go a lot faster. I don't know why. So, I mean, the only thing I can say is if your state has a great online platform to where you can submit everything and do a lot online, that's very helpful in getting things done a little faster. Some states only allow you to mail your articles in, so that, that might take a few days. But I don't know if there's any preference to, the best place to open a nonprofit. That they still fall under the same guidelines. Yeah, so that's all I can say to that.
No, I love it. There was one other question about the states. I think it was can the board members be in different states? I think so. Yeah.
Yes, they can. And again, that's all a matter. So let's talk about organization, your nonprofit bylaws. So this is like your, kind of like your, I wouldn't say your Bible, your nonprofit Bible, but it's kind of your all of your rules. So your bylaws contain what roles the board has, the board officers, what roles the organization president, vice president, all those titles, what roles they play under the organization. But you also have how your board facilitates their meetings. So you definitely want to put in there a clause that yes, we can have our meetings virtual. Yes, and you have guidelines in there where you can actually put in there, we don't, board members, as we recruit board members, we only allow those who are in the state of XYZ. So you can say that, or you can say our board members can live anywhere amongst the US, or, however you want to word it. So that's, your bylaws are very important. That's where you get to customize, and your board, of course, you can't do it by yourself. The board has to approve it, but you all get to customize exactly how your nonprofit will run from the top.
I love it. So we're getting ready to come to a close, right? You just told us how to get started, right? Do the work.
What grant?
How to even do the work.
Yes.
But if you have one tip, if someone had to attempt to write a grant themselves, what's one tip you would give them?
Oh, okay. So the one big tip that I would give you, and this will make your grant writing so much easier. I'll start right now, and you can do this at any point. Begin working on writing down your background information about your organization. This is something you're going to need this for every grant proposal. So if you've already got this to where you can just copy, paste, and drop it in there, do it and make it extensive. So if you're very, very brand new, talk about the expertise. Remember, I told you how you want to bring people onto your board that has these good, talk about the expertise that your board brings, even if you haven't done the work. Our board, has a combined experience of, how make the, or that's what grant writers do. We finesse it to make it sound just so compelling, but you can do that as well. So talk about your background, what your mission is. So get your mission statements together. If you already have one, you might want to revisit it. Some people make their mission statements way too long. As you fill out applications, you might see they only give you 25 words. And you got a long mission paragraph. So start trying to bring your mission down a little bit to where it's like 1 to 2 sentences.
That 30-second elevator pitch.
Yes. And
Okay.
then if you have programs in place, start putting a little verbiage together around the importance of your programs, who your programs are targeting. So if it's towards children, or maybe it's towards African Americans, maybe it's towards people who've lost their jobs. Who knows? It's, all up to your nonprofit. But start writing it down. Get it in. Put it in a file. You can call it whatever you want, but get that information down, and just keep adding to it as you think of things that your organization, like, if this is great, put it in there, because as you start filling out those applications, they're going to ask you for that over and over. Or you may have two different applications. One might be for programming, another for operating. You have to pivot a little bit, because now you want to talk about your staffing more than you talk about your programs on the operating grant. But you still have that information that you can continue to edit and make it fit whatever applicant. So that's the best thing that you can do right now.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Nia. Thank you so much. This has been amazing for me, guys, because I'm over here like, I think I could start a nonprofit. And I already have a program, and so it's like, guys, if this has been helpful, can you put a 1 in the chat? I'm just curious to know if this has been helpful for you, because I know it's been a host of amazing information. The one place you mentioned where you can go look for grants and put them in that same file where you're staying organized, right?
I'm gonna drop that in there. It's called grantstation.com. And the thing is, just kind of sign up with them if they don't have a super good price now, because a lot of times they have sales to where they'll say $129 for 2 years. Like, get that, because it's usually like $600-700 if you're buying a regular subscription. But that Grant Station gives you access to so many different funders. You can find sponsorships through there. You'll see names in there that you would be like, I don't know that foundation. So yes, and if you don't or can't access it, I can access it for you for a small amount, and that, we can always talk about that if you hit me up. So.
I love it. You hear that? Nia's a host of resources, and she is a love bug. She is here to help the community. I'm gonna drop her link one more time so you can make sure you get it. I also put the PDF, the workbook for this weekend. So if you want to take notes, if you want to make sure you still have a link to click on after you get out of this Zoom so you can get back to the resources that she's provided, it is in that workbook. So if you can grab it, download it, that would be awesome. I just want to say
to Dope Link, because I'll be definitely adding some additional resources for you guys to have. I do have a YouTube that I on that link as well. So yeah, just check out any all of my resources. I try to put things out there. I'm on Facebook, just Nia Mullen for everything. So just, resources are out there, but I'm working to get it all in one platform for you all.
That will happen soon. As business owners, I love it. I'm here to help too. So this weekend is all about getting the resources you need. So as business owners, we're here to help. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again so much, Nia, for providing this information. And come back and join us tomorrow. So today was Grant Writing 101. You got way more than grant writing today. You guys got some juice today.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it because that's it. I love people that, because you're passionate about it, right? So you over deliver because you want to make sure that people have what they need. Some people just don't know what to do because they don't have the tools in their toolbox. And if you didn't just give it to them, I don't know what they know what this is. But you guys are welcome. So come back tomorrow if you're interested in getting into real estate, right? Maybe you don't have money. Maybe you don't have the credit. Maybe it's not, you don't want to buy your first home, but you're just curious. And believe you me, even if a nonprofits, it's a real estate game that happens here. You want to tap in. What was that?
Nonprofit developers. There are many of them.
Yes. Yes. So show up tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time again. They joined us, but they will be here tomorrow. So you can ask all of your real estate questions and make sure you tap in with Nia. Grab those links. And thank you again for joining us. Have a good night.
Bye.